Hi, I'm Jordan Thorne, and we're here at Greenbuild 2019. Today I'm joined by George Bandy. He's the Chief Sustainability Officer at Mohawk. George, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. So can you just briefly talk about how you came to be in your current role?
So it's interesting. It's a journey, not a destination for sure. So was in school at Morehouse College and decided to go out to California when I came back from Iraq. So I was in the reserve and then had to go over to the first Desert Storm and serve. And then when I came back, I decided to go out to the West Coast and interesting enough, met some leaders around sustainability who offered me an opportunity to look at this thing called the Natural Step, and they were having a conference up in San Francisco. And so while I was at this conference, I got a chance to meet some really incredible people, Brian Yeoman and John Pareto from the University of Texas in Houston, and they invited me to come down to have a conversation around education and the importance of training around sustainability, and then they offered me a job as a sustainability officer at the University of Texas in Houston. So my career started there, began to do some work with some really amazing people, Plenty Fisk, Gail Vittori, Bob Berkerbaugh, Amory Lovins, and so was able to really move my career along and really learn the aspects of sustainability on the job while they're at the University of Texas Houston Health Science Center. And it was a tremendous attribute to work with faculty members like Carl Hacker and Lorimer, and it was just one of those amazing things that gave me a platform to kind of learn. And so while I was there, I got a chance to participate on the President's Council for Sustainable Development and one of the subcommittees and under the Clinton administration. And not too long after that, Ray Anderson from Interface recruited me to come to work at Interface. And so I started at Interface in 1999 and worked at Interface for 15 years, and then had the opportunity to serve as chairman of the board for USGBC, and then decided to take my talents to Mohawk. It was a larger opportunity for me. I felt like I had done a lot of great work and really was looking for an opportunity to impact someone else in the industry who had both residential and commercial and had a larger footprint, and the opportunity presented itself. And since that time, I've been at Mohawk trying to make magic happen. And so my career's been good. I've been blessed to be fortunate enough to kind of have my entire career based around sustainability, so I'm grateful for that. Yeah,
it's that's actually a really incredible story, and probably a testament to sort of who you are, that you could attract that kind of opportunity at such a young age, which is incredible. It was
good. It was a good opportunity, and I'm excited about it. You know, you reflect back on some things and lessons that you learn, but the principles of sustainability that I learned early on are a critical part of like how I make decisions and the way I still move, and as it relates to the business aspects of sustainability now.
That's amazing. So you sort of have already talked about where your passion for sustainability's come from. Mohawk is one of the leading plastic bottle recyclers that reuses plastic in many of its own products. What do you think some of the biggest challenges will be to achieve a circular economy for the consumer of the future?
Wow, that's a great question. So in terms of us recycling plastic bottles, it's definitely, we take curbside, also waterway plastics, and we bring them back, and we can actually turn them into our Everstrand product on the residential side that we provide for our residential consumers and some of our multifamily. So we're excited about that. I think that the circular economy it's almost amoeba-ish, if that can be a word, because it moves and ebbs and flows, and because it depends on needs and demands. So let's say, for example, 3 of the large automotive industries decide that they need lower-end plastics that are recycled to create post-consumer recycled content in fan shrouds, automotive parts. If you think about cars now, they're not like the '67 Chevrolet in my garage. They have rubber bumpers and rubber pieces. So they're going to increase that post-consumer recycled content by using these plastics that are out there, and some of them might be carpet, some might be the backing, some of them might come from other places. The product that around decking, like the gentleman from Home Depot talked about, the Trex. And where do you think that comes from? It's other plastics. They're looking at using it in roadways. So I think that the circular economy will elevate the opportunity for us to find premium plastics that we can use as post-consumer recycled content to add value. But I also think that there's ownership on manufacturers to also begin to look at, once we get a clean solution that we can bring back, that we create a pathway to start bringing those products back and looking for things that are large in the marketplace that we can extrude and use again over and over again. But I think that the industry will be okay when it comes to circular economy. I think that there's some things that still are going to work themselves out, but a lot of the startup companies and businesses, because when you do the car parts, guess what else has to happen? All the people who are making bumpers that are going to be replacing those car parts also begin to look at increasing, and you start looking at new products that are entering the marketway. Pavers, people using things in driveways and finding different alternatives. So I think that the innovative mindset of the new entrepreneur on the West Coast and East Coast and different countries are beginning to manifest itself in the way that people are doing things, and companies are also figuring out how to design for deconstruction so that they're able to take those clean plastics back, or metals, or whatever, and turn them back into something that can be used again. So I think that we're moving in the right direction. I think that there's some things that need to happen, and innovations that need to be created, and some angel investors that need to make some moves in order to make it really accelerate. But I think that things are moving in the right direction.
Sounds really interesting. So it's kind of about looking at it from the, I mean, I guess that is the circular economy, and beginning to end, but designing as well to let it end, and then how it goes back in.
And that, you know, like, there's companies that are really beginning to do that. Like, if you think about some of the precious metals that it takes to use these things that we're using right here, when they become to a place where you can't get them as much as you used to, or the cost to get them become elevated, then you'll begin to see these types of things, the touchscreen glasses and all these things, these heavy metals that are inside of these things that work for us to be able to recycle them or design them for deconstruction. So the manufacturers for laptops, cell phones, flat screens, cameras begin to ask for those parts back so they can take them loose and reuse them again. So I think we're moving that direction with a lot of the manufacturers that are out in the marketplace.
That's good to hear. So sustainability has traditionally always been more measurement driven, but you talk a lot about the importance of the social component of sustainability. Can you explain what you mean by social component, and why you think it's just as important as the more traditional components?
Sure. Some people might call the social component different aspects of environmental justice or whatever the case might be, but think about the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution was a big machine, right? What was the exhaust pipe of the Industrial Revolution? Landfills in people's backyards that nobody wanted to take responsibility for, Cancer Alley and locations where you didn't want to have it. You had issues related to communities and that did not know about things. And then so we created this mindset of sustainability when we started seeing these global warming issues. We started seeing things that were non-sustainable. We had buildings that weren't healthy. People forget that sick building syndrome that caused us to begin to think about LEED and WELL and Greenbuild and living building. But this was a sick building syndrome, Legionnaire's disease, mold infestation inside of facilities, and people says, hey, we're doing something wrong, we need to really evaluate that. No one raised their hand and said, you know what? We're going to put asbestos in the building knowing it's going to hurt people. Asbestos was the only fire retardant that we had, and it was designed to protect the building. So it was an unintentional consequence of good design, right? Nobody said, hey, we're going to put lead paint on the desk. It was something that was left over from a war, and they used it because it was a resource so kids can get sick. No, they did that because they wanted to try to provide a resource. Unintentional consequence of design. So I think that the way we built buildings in the past, we didn't think about the ramifications of some of the decisions that we're making. And when we did start thinking about the ramifications, we started looking at things like LEED and WELL to try to fix that and create a system that worked. And I think that evolution over the last 3 or 4 years has been more about productivity, performance, health and wellness, the people rather than the building. So how does the building impact the people and bring value to the community and do great things? And that's what we should be thinking about. But in all of that, the manufacturers are still manufacturing things. And one of the quotes that Brian Yeoman imparted on me, and he allows me to use it, is, it's not okay for business to privatize the wealth and then socialize the risk.
It's powerful.
There's part of this that you've got to own. So when I think about the social aspect, people always talk about the environmental aspect. You know why? It's easy to measure. You can measure your greenhouse gas emissions, you can measure your energy, you can measure your water, right?
Yeah.
And what you can't measure is how much of your waste went to a landfill that left your facility, or how much of your NOx, SOx, and those bad chemicals went into the atmosphere that's in a community that you no longer have to live in, or how much of those things are impacting kids and families in breathing zones where they may not even have to benefit. Or let's get even more personal. How much of the greenhouse gas emission and the climate change impacted what decision was made for the areas and the islands that are being destroyed that had nothing to do with the generation of the amount of those climate change issues that they did not create. And so, like, those are all things that we don't want to talk about because it's hard to quantify. Right? The economics piece makes sense. If you can increase worker productivity, reduce people from going to the hospital because of health, increase test scores because of daylighting, all of these things come together and it's bam, we're good, right? We're doing well. Like, it's easy to measure that. So that piece becomes a little shaky for folks, but it doesn't mean you don't own the responsibility to think about it. So one of the things when I say social, what I'm saying is that if you're going to make an investment in renewable energy, or if you're going to do something to offset water, or if you're going to do something, then why not think about a solution that has a social impact as well? So you're impacting those communities, and that's what I mean by handprints over footprints, right? Because a footprint you can easily measure, but a handprint means that you're giving something above and beyond.
Absolutely.
Because it's too late for us to try to take credit for what Mother Nature gives us for free. So when we start talking about what we've done, we don't think about what we've done.
Absolutely.
So like, as much as we've done a really good job as an industry and as an organization to try to move the needle and do great things, but we also have to think about the footprint that we've left before we started counting.
Wow.
And so when we think about that, we've got to say, hey, we really should be thinking about the social impacts, and we can't get where we're going with 50-year-old white males. Right? A whole nation and a culture of people have to be indoctrinated around sustainability in order to get them to move the needle and make climate change important to people who aren't thinking about it. And that requires us to really move forward. So as much as we're investing in innovation, creativity, and all these things, I asked a group of people over there this a little while ago, imagine if every kid in elementary school who didn't have LED bulbs in their home took one LED bulb home today.
I think it
as a parent, the pressure to not buy the traditional bulbs anymore is on. And educate the kid on why it's important and their impact and what they're able to do, and then all of a sudden, like, that's what I mean by handprints. Like, how do we begin to think like that? Like, when you make a decision to do something, it's all right to do it and you say, hey, I've done it at my house, and you feel good about that. But President Obama talked about this. Like, what about an entire nation and a group of people that you need to move that with, and you got to meet them where they're at? Like, to ask them to buy a Nest and they barely can afford to get their medicine, like, that's an unfair exchange. So how do you begin to have a conversation about things that can happen? And I think that is not the ownership of a manufacturer or a corporation, but it is the ownership, if you're going to be investing in the community and doing corporate social responsibility, to make that a part of that, and that's significantly important if we want to make a commitment to sustainability. And I think that Greenbuild and USGBC has done a really good job with that.
Amazing. Do you think it's, because you touched on sort of like that example of a young child, do you think it's a lot about sort of that's sort of where we could start with sort of, you know, maybe parents and adults? I think it's undeniable in some respects what sort of harm that we've done in a lot of areas, but sometimes people still don't, they see it, but they're like, how can I do it? What, you know, and so I guess is it the pressure or the just having younger kids grow up to then sort of influence that?
I'm one of those people who believe I'm the ultimate optimist. So I believe, like, you can save anyone, you can catch someone at any age. 'Cause I feel like this. Our grandparents and great-grandparents, they knew.
You think so?
They understood it. If you think about the way that they lived, they never threw stuff away. They were always responsible for their community. They always thought about their families. They had gardens. They thought about things. They never cooked too much or did too much. You know, my grandmother's house just got air conditioning. Like, we lived in Alabama, in the hottest state, I believe, in the world, with no air conditioning for forever, right? And so, like, when you think about some of the things that they were able to do and how they manifested those values to you, to not throw things away, to be responsible for your neighbors, to think about downstream, to look at things differently, to treat people with dignity and respect, not to look down on folks. Like all those things that we were instilled, we don't lose them. We just try to find different ways to manifest them. So we get to selectively place them where we want to, but we don't get to collectively use them when we need to. So one of the things I try to encourage is that bring your whole self to work. Because sometimes we feel like we got to come to work a certain way. But when you bring your whole self to work, then you get to see who people are and what their values are and what's important to them, and you can find a way to excite them and get them motivated about something that they can do to bring a different level of value. I think that gets lost sometimes in the mix, but I feel like we can save anybody. But I do think that this generation of Generation Z, they are making decisions with their pocketbooks. And by doing so, they're also very knowledgeable about sustainability and about, slave labor and about, how you're having an impact on corporate social responsibility and whether or not you're doing the right things. And if you've got somebody who's the face of your organization and they're not doing very well, then all of a sudden it can go really quick. Things can, and you can lose an opportunity to do great work and be successful in business by not being responsible. So I think that they're going to raise the bar on the expectations of companies. I always tell my team, if people trust you as a company, they'll find something to buy from you. Right?
Yeah.
You might hear about a restaurant 1,000 times, as we were talking earlier before we got on the thing. Now, you may have never been there, but the excitement that I had about it, you're going to go.
Yeah.
And if the service is good and the food is good, you're going to find something on that menu that you like. And I think that applies to almost anything. If people love the organization, the company, what they're doing, if they've got good values, then people will find a product to choose, or they'll find whatever it is, service that you're selling, or find someone on the team that they can work with because they feel good about the company. And people are loyal to that. And I think that that's the direction that we try to elevate the brand so that people can appreciate who we are and what we're doing. And we've got so many different solutions, we hopefully can find something that they can utilize.
Yeah, I love that the way you look at it. That's great. What could so as we're talking about employees and sort of, bringing yourself to work, what can the everyday employee do to adopt that social component into the workplace?
So people ask me like, hey, we're really excited that you have looked at eliminating certain chemicals to create a red list free solution for my customer. When I'm talking to designers or end users, my customer's going to appreciate this. You've taken all these things out. But I look at the exact opposite. I look at it from the plant employee who has to deal with those chemicals first. How important has it got to be to him or her that at the plant level when they're making a solution, not only that you're eliminating these chemicals from them having to process them when they make a solution for the end use customer, but think about how much pride they now have that they're creating something that's totally different. And they're adding value around health, wellness, productivity, success, value to a customer that they never probably will see. The sense of pride that they have around doing that is something that you create. And so they begin to ask questions like, hey, can we get a walking trail? Yeah, we're going to build them a walking trail because we want our employees to be valuable. Hey, we need to have a healthy life center on campus where there's a nurse that's on staff, so we created that opportunity for them to have that on the workplace. Hey, we want to look at making sure we have enough water inside of the machines on the, absolutely, we're going to create that opportunity. And you begin to create a culture where people begin to feel good about working at an organization. And that's just as important as the customer on the other end. So I feel like my customers go both ways. And if I don't service both of my customers, then I'm not doing my job. And so I encourage my team that this customer is just as valuable as that customer, because if this customer is happy, I guarantee you that customer will be more than satisfied. So you have to look at that from a perspective of doing things the right way. And when I talk to my suppliers, I had the same conversation. Hey, I've got 2 customers. So if you're bringing something into my manufacturing facilities that is impacting that customer or that customer, then you need to think about that, because I'm going to be looking at that with a very, very conscious eye, because that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing, I think, how you approach things and really try to kind of put yourself in all different types of shoes
have to.
means that you actually get it right. Yeah.
I care.
Yeah, you can tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell, definitely. How can leaders build a case for bringing more sustainable thinking into their businesses?
I don't think it's going to be an option for leaders.
Okay.
And I think that they're going to approach it from different standpoints. I'm not one of those people who believe that there's one way to reach the goals for sustainability.
Yeah.
Whatever your way is, then I salute that, I cheer for that, and I support that where I can. So I think that we don't get the opportunity to compete for what we owe to Mother Nature. So I think that there will be a pressure point on any organization or any company that is bringing services to bear that are not providing good solutions to the marketplace. And I don't think you'll be in business long. No offense to the Palm Pilot, but it didn't stay around long.
That's true, yeah.
No offense to the RIM, but once the iPhone came out, it was gone.
Yeah.
So like that evolution of solutions and making sure that you have something that works, it's valuable, it brings value to the client, and that it also meets all the requirements on the social side, environmental side, and economic side in terms of profitability, because profitability is not a bad word.
Yeah.
It is what you need in order to do all the great stuff that you want to do and have the impact that you want to have.
Yeah.
And you want to create meaningful work for people who are coming into the workforce.
Yeah.
Right. If you want to attract and retain the best talent, then you need to have a solution where they can actually engage and be a part and be able to facilitate what they're trying to do and give a good message out to the community. So we're trying to do what we can to have our impact, but I think that all leaders are moving in this direction in one way or another. And I feel like if you're not moving in this particular direction, you're either at the table or you're on the menu. One of the two.
Good way to put it, yeah. You are talking a lot about your team and sort of how you inspire them and all these kind of amazing things. How are you and your team innovating towards kind of achieving some of the sustainability development goals that the UN set?
Yeah. So one of the things I'll say is that I am actually like just a manifestation of multiple teams. And so I get inspired by them more than I feel like they get inspired by me. I have a unique way and a unique style about specific things as it relates, and history and wisdom kind of lean towards that. But in terms of my inspiration, it comes from people. When I see the light go on, it like that is like the ultimate thing for me. So in terms of our commitment to the Sustainable Development Goals from the UN, we have aligned our sustainability report with those goals.
Oh, amazing.
And we began to align all of our strategies around our residential products, around our commercial solutions, around our business units related to those Sustainable Development Goals, so we can better understand how we're impacting those goals and how those goals are impacting us. And the other thing that people don't talk about is where are we not having an impact and why?
Yeah.
So like to me, I want to understand where we're not having an impact as a business, and is there a reason for that?
Yeah.
Like, are there things that we need to be thinking about that we're not thinking about? So having a balance of encouraging the team also, when they bring their whole self to work, they're going to bring some things that you may not agree with. But they create levels of consternation that allow you to be able to think more strategically.
Yeah.
So like when we bring all those people together, it's not always going to be like, that doesn't work out. And you're going to have some, but what that does is it elevates your thinking.
Yeah.
It allows you to be more comprehensive in your approach. It gives you the chance to learn from one another. And like for me, I always tell the sales reps when they're out in the marketplace, they complain about the competition. And I always tell them that if you don't have any competition and you can't sell, then what are you doing? Right? So the whole reason for understanding your marketplace and having competition is to get better.
Yeah.
Like if you don't have, like you think the teams in the NBA that win don't want to win every night? Like I want to win every night.
Yeah.
And so I want to understand how to go to play every night, and I want to figure out different things. Some nights I might win with defense.
Yeah.
Some nights I might win with offense. Some nights I might win with good coaching. Some nights I might win just because I had a lucky bounce. But whatever that might be, I learn every aspect of the game so that I can get better at it. And so if you ask the right questions, you get the right answers, you elevate your skill set so that you're more effective in the marketplace. And everybody in the company is a salesperson.
Okay.
Right? Everybody's a salesperson. You're selling something. Hopefully you're selling on behalf of the organization and the value that you bring and why you are who you are, because the organization attracts talent. And if you're selling at a very high level, you're going to get people to come on board and want to participate, and that's important. So we're excited about the opportunities that we have to do that from a global perspective with all of our business units.
In your teams, or sort of in the wider business, do you sort of look for those kind of creative sessions on, like, how can we, you mentioned looking at the things you're not doing, but do you ever sort of make sure that the floor is open for anybody who has ideas that maybe you haven't thought about, or that it's sort of an approachable kind of culture?
I think, first of all, we have an inbox so people can send stuff all the time, but I think globally, sustainability is all local. Yeah. Right? I call it global.
Okay.
Right? So each of the teams have an innovative team that does just that, or they have a R&D team that pulls those ideas together and figures out ways to, and then by those things bubbling up, what you do is you look them and you see them and you say, man, that's all right. How can we use that in this particular business, or does that apply to this particular business? You know, a great example. So most people don't know, Mohawk also is a collaborative partner with Dow Tao. So Dow Tao is one of our businesses. Okay. Right? Most people don't know that. Yeah. We're a conglomeration of big businesses. So Dow Tao did something 2 years ago. They used to have off-quality product, and all the product is dirt that's baked. Okay. That's tile, that's ceramic, that's what it is. Yeah. It's dirt and you bake it and you put a glaze on it and that's it, right? Yep. So when they have off quality, something usually goes wrong, it doesn't bake right, it chips, it cracks, whatever the case might be. And they had tons and tons of it sitting outside, like waiting on somebody to come get it, or how do we donate it? And somebody comes up with the idea of, let's get this machine, and they called it like the Dow Tao Crusher. Because all it is you crush it up and you put it back in the mix, and you got like, it was like,
no one thought of it.
Ding, bell goes off, and they get this solution, somebody creates something, and they go and tweak it, and it begins to work, right? So, like, those are the kind of things that manifest themselves just through people thinking about how can we be more responsible for the materials that we bring into the earth, and how can we think about things differently and increase recycled content by doing some of these really cool things. And so you begin to look at those things, and that happens everywhere. And you can't keep up with it all. All you want to really do is somebody plants the seed, somebody else waters it, somebody fertilizes it, and then the plants begin to come up. One of the things I like is that once the plants begin to come up, people begin to cross-pollinate, right? And you got flowers blooming everywhere, and there are ideas and innovations and creativity that begins to pop up. And all we get to do is just tell those great stories and enjoy what other people are able to do. And so that's always a joy to be able to see these things kind of happening behind the scenes, just because you create a culture that allows that to happen.
Sounds like an amazing place to work for.
We have some fun. We do.
Yeah, you can tell. And just to finish off, I love to ask this question, but why do you get up and do what you do every day?
Wow. I'll say it's my grandmother planted these seeds in me before I knew that they were even planted. So she was the first environmentalist that I ever met. Right? Wow. So she never threw anything away. She was always committed to thinking about her neighbor first. And she used to always talk to me about the importance of being a steward of God's earth, right? And so when I was young, I really didn't understand, you know, all of the fullness of what she was trying to give me, but she was teaching me about paying it forward before I even understood what it meant, like the things that she would do, the things that she would demonstrate by her behavior and her actions. And it made me think about what Barack Obama was talking about, like, you can have all these lofty ideas about what you want to do, but if you don't make a commitment to actually do something about it, then you are just faking yourself, right? So she lived that way, her and my grandfather, and I watched them demonstrate that and didn't know what I would do as a career or kind of understand the fullness of that. But once I got into this space and it got sweet to me, I began to look at ways like, okay, although this is at a very, very technical, high strategic level, it's still the same core values. I'll never forget when I got my first job in sustainability, and I came home and my grandmother was laying there, and I was having this conversation, and I was telling her about this job, like, man, I get to go in and we get to recycle plastic bottles, and we're taking paper and mixing white and other paper that's different and putting it all together, and you know, it's called a mixed paper now. We get money for it, none of this and that, and talking about all the stuff that we're doing. We're reducing water, reducing energy. And my grandmother was sitting there in the bed. She looked at me and with the stoic face said, "Baby, it sounds like your job is common sense." Right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it was kind of like,
It's true.
she's about
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, and the only other story that I loved about my grandmother is that the same time that I had talked to her about this job, I came in the house, and that was when plastic water was finally getting popular. I'm dating myself a little bit, right?
Okay.
But I came in, I sat this plastic water. My grandmother had glaucoma, couldn't see very well, and so she tipped it over, and she says, "Oh, Junior, I'm so sorry I knocked over your soda." I said, "Oh, Granny, it's some bottled water. Don't worry about it. I got some more in the car. It's just a bottled water. Don't worry about it." So I go outside to get some more bottled water, come back inside. She's got the rest of my family gathered around the bed, and she says, "All the schooling for we paid for that boy, and somebody sold him some bottled water." So if you think about it, in her lifetime,
Yeah.
she don't even understand why you gotta buy bottled water. She like, go to the hose pipe and get some water, right? Like it doesn't make sense to her. And in that shorter period of time, think about it, we're buying water. What's next, air? Like these things that Mother Nature provides us for free, we're having to pay for and to clean. Like as a society, how do we begin to look at that differently? So these are lessons that she taught, and I keep these lessons in my heart as I go out and make decisions around what we're doing, and I keep them in a framework that makes sense around sustainability for an organization, no matter what that organization might be. Principles apply to all organizations, and we have fun while we do it, and it's important. It's critically important to the next generation to understand how you pass information on and the things that are important to them as they move into an organization, to bring their whole selves to work, to be creative and innovative, or you're going to lose them.
Yeah.
You know, millennials will leave a job. I always tell my kids, you know, my daughter, my oldest daughter, she's in medical school, and I remember having a conversation with her about not changing jobs. I'm like, hey, you don't want to go somewhere, you get a job? And she's like, well, Dad, I don't want to do what you did. I said, what do you mean by that? She said, I want to travel and enjoy life and not work so hard. You work 15, 20 hours a day and come home late at night and you're tired. I don't want to live like that. I'd rather make less money and enjoy my time and have more quality time for my family than to do what you did. And like that resonated with me. So when you are listening to millennials and Gen Z and you're not thinking it from their perspective, that's why they do stuff like create their own businesses or try to innovate, because they want to get their time back and they want to travel and enjoy things that they saw you not do.
Yep.
Right? And that makes sense. Like, but we don't want to accept that because we get in this place where we feel like we have to be right. And in that particular instance, I think she got it right. I think I got it wrong. Right?
Yeah, you kind of have to humble yourself.
Yeah, you got to humble yourself to be accepting to like the idea. So that's why it's easy for them to come back home and live. Yeah, it's okay. Like they're like, you know, like you fuss, but I'm back. Right? Because they value their time and their ideas, and they want their importance to be recognized, and they want to be able to live comfortably. But they're not as stuck on like working 20 hours a day and not having any time just to climb up a corporate ladder. They're not concerned as much about that. And so I gotta respect that. You know, and I gotta understand, like, they want the shortcut. Like, we used to have to go get on microfiche and microfilm to look stuff up. Like, now they just Google it. Like, you can speak it in the phone while you're driving and figure out where you're going. Like, I remember thumbing through a map to try to figure out where I was going. So, like, that whole evolution of things contributes to how people view life. Like, you know, and you've got to be able to be receptive to that because things are moving a lot faster than we might even want to give them credit for. But we've got to accept that and engage and participate. So it's been fun. I mean, you know, I get up every day because I feel like I owe it to people who came before me. So I feel like when I'm standing at that mic the other day, I'm representing people who invested in me. And if you turn around and look at that line's pretty damn long. Of people who have given of themselves, their resources, their time to me. So when I look back at that line, I feel like I am a manifestation of everybody in that line, no matter how small or how big their contribution was. And I feel like I owe all of those folks who invested in me. And so I have to give that back away to people who may not have that type of investment. So That's the way I approach it.
Amazing. You're an incredible man. I think it's amazing that you value sort of the past and your grandparents and sort of people that have supported you, and equally are, I think, a great sort of medium to bring like millennials and Gen Z into kind of believing in and kind of taking it into the future. So thank you so much for speaking to me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much.